Welcome to K-Drama School. I'm your host, Grace Jung, and class is now in session. Announcements. I will be performing in downtown Los Angeles at Guerrilla Tacos at 8 p.m. on Halloween night. So that's this evening, tonight, Halloween night. If you're in LA, please come through. I think there's like a Halloween costume contest and you could win up to $500. I don't know if they're going to give you cash or if it's like $500 worth of catering, but either way, you win because it's money or tacos. You win either way. So please come. And then on Friday, November 4th, I'll be performing at Bay Bridge Brewing at 8 p.m. This is in San Diego. And then on Saturday, November 5th, I'll be performing at Twigs, which is also in San Diego. It will also be at 8 p.m. Lastly, if you have not seen my film, JNS Auto, just yet, you can catch the final screening at the San Diego Asian Film Festival on Friday, November 4th in the afternoon at 2:30 p.m. at the Ultra Star Cinemas. That is in San Diego. The ticket link is on jsautofilm.com. I also want to take some time to say that my thoughts are with South Korea. There was a crowd surge a couple nights ago that led to a terrible trampling incident that killed 153 people. Many, many more are injured, and some are in critical condition, fighting for their lives. So please keep them in your thoughts. Itaewon is where this trampling incident occurred. That is usually the area where they celebrate Halloween. And Itaewon is a neighborhood that's very close to my heart. I have an aunt who lives in Itaewon. I have friends who live in Haebangchon, which is very close to Itaewon. I've performed stand-up in Haebangchon. I have seen drag shows in Haebangchon. I have been to queer bars in Itaewon. Itaewon is a very important queer community space, and I send my love to my friends and family in Korea. The show I'm going to talk about today is called My Roommate is a Gumiho, also known as 간 떨어지는 동거, which is a 2021 Korean drama that aired on TVN. It was originally a webtoon series. What's unique about My Roommate as a Gumiho is the fact that China is a co-producer of this show. The Chinese VOD streaming site iQIYI is the company that co-produced the show along with a production studio in South Korea. And this is kind of a big deal because in 2017, the Korean government enabled this US anti-missile system known as the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, also known as THAAD. And that made China very angry because that meant that the American government could potentially enter China's airspace, which could potentially allow US forces to tap into the Chinese airwaves, which could potentially lead to spying. So it's very Homeland-esque, it's very CIA-esque, but these are, real problems, right? I mean, America and China, they do not have a very friendly relationship. This was a big issue, and South Korea was in the middle of it. But since South Korea followed through on using THAAD, and the excuse for following through with it was so that South Korea could protect itself and protect US forces from North Korean missiles. All right. So China, because they were angry about this, they took punitive measures and they pulled back all of its business from South Korea. All right. So they banned Korean dramas, of course. They banned Korean films. And of course, K-pop was also banned, right? Loads of Korean products like food from Lotte and CJ also banned. Like no Milkies, you know, no none of those like little puffs with the chocolate inside. All right, none of that. they were all just like not allowed into China anymore. Electrical appliances not allowed, Korean cars not allowed. So South Korea took a huge hit economically as a result of THAAD. Which is terrible because I mean South Korea was doing it to satisfy America. Like it was like a very it's like a child getting in the middle of parental, like separated parents. You know what I mean? It's just like an awful situation. Last year in 2021, when Aichi decided to co-produce My Roommate as a Gumiho, it became a sign that the political tensions between South Korea and China were starting to ease up. And Aichi also acquired the rights to that show Something in the Rain. The banning became a little more lax. Like South Korea was no longer grounded or something. Like they were allowed to go back outside again, whatever. But this could change in an instant. Politics are very fickle, but as of now, Aichi did co-produce a Korean drama, My Roommate as a Gumiho. Gumiho, for those of you who don't know, is a mystical creature that originates from China. A Gumiho is a nine-tailed fox who can morph into a seductive woman, and she becomes this like femme fatale figure that lures typically men into very precarious situations. And this myth and archetype carried into the Korean folklore because Korea was part of China. That's why you have in this saying in the Korean um, rhetoric, you have this saying like, "Oh, she's being such a yo," that guy's such a yo, like they're such a yo, which yo means fox, all right? So it means like if they're very attractive, but in a cunning, sly, sort of, you know, ulterior motive driven kind of way, then you call them a yo, right? It's like yeah, like they're a little sketchy, right? They're hot but sketchy. So it's a little different from how we use the term fox in the Western context. In the Western context, in the English language, we'll call a sexy person a fox. Like, oh, she's a fox, like what a fox. And it's typically a compliment, but when a Korean calls somebody a yo, it's not a compliment. It's a critique. So that would be the difference here. But a variation of this kumiho is found in Japan, in Vietnam. It's like all over Asia. So the Gumiho is a very prominent figure in Asian folklore and mysticism. But Gumiho is typically a woman, all right? But on this show, the Gumiho is a man, played by the very handsome Chang Gi-yong, who I adore with all my heart. He's currently serving his conscription duty, and he will be back. He will be back soon, so do not fret. All of the members of BTS will also be back, so hang in there, you kids. It's gonna be okay. All right. The thing about Chang Gi-yong is he's always exactly the same. He's always like very quiet, very reserved, very repressed. I don't know what his deal is, but like I've never seen him like lose his shit. I want to see him lose his fucking shit, but he's just like so tightly wound. Yeah. So I've seen Chang Gi-yong in Search WWW. I've seen him in The Go Back Couple, and I've seen him in Now We Are Breaking Up, and he's always the same. He's like this tall, hot, reserved, well-mannered stud type. He can do no wrong. He's flawless, okay? But like I feel like as a performer, he really needs to learn how to express himself with more diversity. Like maybe casting needs to change. Maybe they need to give him like different roles. Oh, I guess in My Mister, he plays a little bit of a different kind of character. He's playing like this villain, right? He's like this asshole villain type. Okay, so My Mister is an exception. He's very good at playing this like psychopathic, sociopathic asshole. He's very good at that too. So, you know what? I take back that statement just a little bit. But even still, I still feel like these things, the very well-mannered type and then this asshole type, they're like on the same spectrum. Like they're on the same thread, okay? Like they're just polar opposites. I want to see him go somewhere else. All right? Like I want to see him take a chance, like take a risk. Chang Gi-yong, play some nutbag, some weird eccentric type that we would just be like, "Wait, what the hell? You're shattering our illusion." Like in Korean, you say "깨다." Like I really want you to get my illusion of you. Okay, just Destroy it. Tear it down, please. I want to see you thrive and fly as an actor. So Chang Gi-young, he's playing this character Shin Woo-yeol, who is way too much of a fantasy, okay? He's too perfect in every single way. He is very considerate. He is so reserved. He has boundaries. He has this Sunbi-like restraint, all right? Sunbi meaning a Joseon dynasty nobleman, okay? They're so their restraint is like militaristically disciplined, all right? They're all about honor, okay? It's ridiculous. All right, there's so many aspects about this show that also reminded me of Kim Un-suk's Goblin, right? Which came out 5 years prior to this show, but there were so many overlaps, like including some lines. There were some lines on My Roommate as a Gumiho that sounded or echoed lines from Goblin. Okay, there were like so many little things that just reminded me of Goblin, and I was like, this is just like a carbon copy of Goblin in some ways, and it's pissing me off. Okay, like, the fox is like 900 something years old, and then the girl is a student. Okay, she's in college. All right, whatever, but it's still a student and a 900-year-old dude. Okay, like in Goblin, it was a 900 something year old dude and a high school student. All right, so like we've upgraded a little bit. It's like slightly more appropriate, but it's still like inappropriate. Okay, like she's still a young lady. She's still a girl, and he's too old for her. All right, it's not okay. Okay, he's a professor and he's dating a student. That's not okay. All right, what's happening here? That's not very feminist. All right, that's not okay. All right. So yeah, there are these contradictions, right? Like he's restrained, but he's still inappropriate. Like he's a professor dating a student. Like that's not okay. There was one part in the show when Uya starts to like lose his restraint and he becomes a little bit crazy because he's horny, right? Like they didn't directly say this outright, not in the beginning, of course, but there's a scene when Uya and the chick, they're like making out, and then suddenly you see the fire in his eyes, right? Like suddenly he turns a little evil, a little red in the eyes, and he's making out with her like with a little more aggression, like a bestial aggression. And that is a metaphor, of course, for this man allowing his primal desire to overtake, and it just cuts away his noble restraint, right? Like he's a sexual beast, okay? And he's gonna eat this little lamb of a college girl, right? So I thought that was like a a funny, campy sort of, but an original spin on how to reframe masculinity when it's flawed, right? Like shortcomings of men, right? Like we're still hormonal people. Men are plagued by sexual thoughts. This guy was out of touch with it for a long time, but making out with this chick is starting to stir that up, right? So I thought that was original in the context of this show, and for once it was not copying Goblin. So I was very happy with that. And then in episode 3, there's a line that stuck with me when he says that he cannot think like humans. That comes up repeatedly, right? He's like, I don't think like you human beings. I am not a human person. I've been copying human behavior, but I am not a human person. He says this over and over again. He also says, like, I have trouble with empathy because I am not a human person. It's this repeated pattern of saying, like, I am not a human. I am not a human. It kept coming up, and I was like, oh, so he's not in touch with his emotions. Like he's not a whole person because his thoughts and feelings are not in sync, right? So he's trying to get in touch with his humanity. So again, this goes back to like, oh, the metaphor of a man learning how to connect to his mind, body, and thought, right? Turn it into one, right? But of course, he can't do it alone. He needs to have this young lady change him. Okay, that's another problem with a lot of K dramas, but on this show especially. Like, listen, ladies, if you're young, please know you can't change a man. So, this is a show where it's not the prince coming to kiss the sleeping princess and wake her up or rescue her. This is about a girl kissing a fox who turns into a man, right? The ending when Uya becomes a human being like he always wished, and then you hear the god's voice, right? Like Ko Kyung-pyo's character's voice, he comes in and he's like, "Oh, so if you prove yourself to be capable of love and sacrifice and patience, then you will be rewarded this gift of becoming a human person," which I was like, this is like out of the ending of Pinocchio when the star angel lady comes down and says to Pinocchio, if you prove yourself to be, brave and not selfish, then you will become a real boy. So I was like, this is like identical to Pinocchio, right? So it's like a lot of intertext here and there. There was also the intertext of Reply 1988, right? Like Ko Kyung-pyo, for one, being in the drama. There's also the scene when Chang Gyung's character is singing at the 노래방. He's singing that song 아파트, which was also on the show Reply 1988. Hetty eats so much on this show. I thought she was gonna die. I was really worried about her health. I'm like, why is she eating so much? Like, seriously, how can a person eat this much on a show? This is not healthy. This is not okay, you know? I was genuinely worried about her health. Also, Hetty is known for two things, all right? There are two things that make Hetty a K drama favorite. One is her laugh. She has a very funny laugh. Two is her scream. Hetty's scream is amazing. It's super funny. It's the reason why I love her on Reply 1988. Like, whenever she screams, I'm dying laughing. I think it's so funny. This show abuses Hetty's scream, okay? If a performer has a funny gimmick, the idea is to really use it sparingly, all right? Because otherwise, the gimmick dies, the magic dies. And this show had Hetty scream her head off multiple times in multiple episodes. I was like, this is not okay. This is an abuse of her charm quality. It's not okay. I have a huge issue with it. Overall, the show had too many overlaps with the show Goblin. Just because Goblin was a mega success does not necessarily mean that K drama executives should continuously expect another fantasy drama to be as successful as Goblin. I feel like that's just not going to happen. In fact, Kim Eun-suk tried to do another fantasy drama after Goblin, and what was it? It was fucking garbage. All right? She did the King Eternal Monarch, and it was terrible. It was terrible. All right? So you gotta just let writers be free creative thinkers and let originality come when it's time for it to come. Okay, you can't force it out of people. All right, don't expect all these fantasy dramas to be as successful as Goblin. It's not the genre itself, it was the show. The show Goblin was great, and there will never be another Goblin, so stop trying to make another Goblin like this show. My roommate is a Gumiho. It's a weird show. It's not my favorite. I thought it was like really fucking bizarre, but you know, it helps. It helps to see actors I love like Hedy and Chang Kyung. Also, Hedy has not had a very good track record ever since Reply 1988. I feel like every drama she's done since Reply 1988 just was terrible. It sucked. I feel like she can't break out of that role as Sunduk-sun. It's a tragedy, truly. But who knows? Maybe, one day something will happen and she'll hit her stride. Speaking of originality, my guest today is a dear old friend named Catherine Min, also known as Cat Min. She is the author of the book Shy Willow, which came out last year. Her new book, Little Toy Maker, is coming out tomorrow, November 1st. So please order this book. You can pre order it on Amazon. You can go and pre order it at your local bookstore. Whatever it is you need to do. It's a beautiful book, The Little Toy Maker. Please order it. It is coming out tomorrow, November 1st. And she is already working on her third book, which is set to come out spring of 2024. And that is the same time when my book, K Drama School, will be hitting shelves. So that should be fun. Okay. If you have not checked out her work yet, please do. You could find a lot more info on catman.com. Catherine and I go way back. We've known each other since we were teenagers. We have traveled together. We went to Las Vegas together. We went to Hong Kong together. That was fun going to Hong Kong. I remember like eating like these amazing crabs with her and also going to a hotel and her like dad bought us drinks and that was fun. And yeah, like Catherine's great. I've known her for many years. We worked on a film together in 2009, Billow, which played at a film festival, the Cantor Film Festival, I believe. And she and I collaborated numerous other times. For instance, the artwork on K Drama School podcast is it was illustrated by Catherine. Yeah. And the art cover on my book, Delhi Ideology, my novel, that was drawn by Catherine. Yes. And Catherine and I are currently co directing a hybrid experimental documentary film together. She is somebody I love to collaborate with. Okay. She is an immensely talented individual. She's a very generous and loving individual. She is highly creative. She is very sensitive and she is very original.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of
I just took a
course.
shower, so it's like a little wet.
No, it's all good. You look pretty. How are you doing?
I'm good. What was it? It's a little hectic right now because the published date was like kept moving. It was like
Mm,
October 4th and then got pushed to November 15th and now it's November 1st. So
mm-hmm.
it's like okay. When I thought it was pushed to November 15th, I was like, oh okay, so I have some time to like prepare. But now it's like November 1st. It's like, oh okay. I'm like doing all this stuff.
What do you have
So
to prepare for? The like
so
press
there's
or?
a they needed me to do like make an activity sheet for
Oh,
like for kids and like
shoot.
all that stuff and like the book trailers and all that stuff.
A
Yeah.
book trailer?
Yeah. Like not like a real like trailer, but they said if I had something that was sort of that could help promote the book a bit more, anything that I could do. And then we had like a meeting and like discussed what I could do and stuff like that. So
Wow.
yeah.
So many of your skills are coming handy right now, you know?
It's I'm glad that it is being used for this. So yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And you too.
Congratulations.
너도 곧 나오잖아. 너도 곧 이제 시작하잖아. Congratulations.
You already have a third book in the queue, right?
It is like it was kind of like going back and forth, and then it became public only very recently. And then like
Mm-hmm.
my agent was actually the one who was like, "Hey, did you know it's announced?"
I want to start
Okay,
with the first one,
okay,
Shy
I have it
Willow.
too.
I
Uh,
it's such a beautiful book, first of all. There
thank
are
you.
several things about it that I was like, as I was looking at it, I was like, okay, yeah, I need to talk to you about this. All right. So,
Okay.
you know, since I know you were trained in filmmaking, right, at
Uh,
NYU Tisch, because I know this about you and because I know how much you love cinema, right? When it came to pages like this
uh,
and then pages like this,
uh, yeah,
I was like, this is why this is a perfect medium for Catherine
yeah,
because you like to express without words if
mm,
you can help it.
mm, yeah,
Because sometimes because sometimes words start shit, it starts drama, and you're just
yeah.
like, I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. Well, you want me to be careful with my words? Fine, I won't say jack shit. You just draw something. I'm not saying anything.
But look at this.
This is a moon and a bunny, you know? Like, yeah. I mean,
Mm,
think about how those words shaped you, man. It's like, think
mm,
about what you're about to say. Think about what you're about to say. And you're like, I
mm,
am so fucking tired of thinking. I'm not going to say
mm,
anything. I'm not going to
yeah.
use language. I'm just going to use pictures. And it was like my favorite part of the book. I was like, "Oh, this is so cinematic," you know? And
Mm,
it reminds me of even like, the earlier films like Lumiere
mm,
brothers with like,
mm.
they had the moon, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is like film." So like, yeah,
Mm.
tell me about those imageries.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I did want to use sort of like a sequence type, um, like type of way of storytelling, and like instead of using words, to have just pictures to show what's going on. And I think by doing that, you're kind of allowing the viewer, the reader, to kind of like decide how they feel about that scene or sequence or image. um so it's like, is Willow excited? Is
Mhm.
she scared? Is she you know fearful? What's going on? And you could kind of like decide for yourself, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I had most fun like doing these sort of like sequence type of images because
Yeah.
it's like you're not really using, like, when you have words on the image, you kind of have to think about making sure the images match with what the text is telling you. But
Yeah.
like if you just have the image, if you only have pictures on that page, you're kind of free to kind of like go with it and like not
Yes.
really have to worry about what the words are saying. So I think, yeah, that's
I
the
love that.
yeah.
There's something anchoring about words, right?
You know, yes, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I do see how words can be such a beautiful way to like describe what's going on, you
Mm.
know? It's like it's so different, like using pictures and like using only words. Like,
Yes.
because words can like really, really bring out that imagination in your own mind.
Yeah.
But like pictures, it's like this is how it looks, but what you get away from it is your freedom. So it's like it's very kind of different, I think,
Yeah.
ways of storytelling.
That's a good
Um,
point. Yeah,
you know,
they do both sketch out something. They are both
yeah,
ways of illustrating something. And,
yeah,
I guess like people say this a little bit one-sidedly about both mediums. Like with pictures, they'll be like, "Oh, it's not really left to interpretation." But it
mm-hmm,
is because you have this sequence and like you were like, "Oh,
mm-hmm,
is Willow scared or is she excited?" And it's like
mm-hmm,
that's left to interpretation.
mm-hmm,
And then with words, they'll be like, "Well, you can sort of create your own picture in your mind based on these words." Yes, but the author is being precise with those words. And it's
mm-hmm,
like if you're really attentive to how each word is being placed here, it's gonna exact another image. Yes.
right,
So yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah. I like that assessment a
yeah,
lot. Yeah.
yeah. It's fun. It's when you like start dissecting how like a story is told. It's like it's fun to do that. Yeah, yeah.
Was it challenging at all to get this idea out? Or was it kind of like you were in the flow and sort of just kind of spilled out? How was that for you?
Yeah, like I think when I first started with Shy Willow, it was kind of it was only with the character. The like it always kind of starts with an image. Like for me, it was like the rabbit in the mailbox, and kind of like,
Mm,
okay, so why is the rabbit in the mailbox, and like what kind of rabbit, like what kind of character is she? Why is she there? And like I think that's where it kind of like that's where the flow happens, where it's like, okay, she's there because blah blah blah, and like what could possibly happen?
mm,
Like, oh,
mm,
she
mm.
gets a letter, and then like kind of like
Mhm.
who puts that letter in there? And it like kind of like goes. You understand this. um so that was, I think, with Shy Willow, like I like just this image and this world that I was like kind of making around her was just a lot of fun for me. And
Yeah.
like because it just, there's no, I don't have to explain like this is a real rabbit and like how does she get in there, she squeezes in there. No, like I can just kind of skip all of that, and it's like she just starts in this abandoned mailbox, and like the reader just accepts that as the reality of this world. And that, I think that's why I was able to just like kind of go with it and not really worry about the like having it making sense, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I know there was this one reviewer, I forgot where I saw it, but it was like she was like so angry. I don't know why she was so angry, but this reviewer was like, "It's ridiculous. I don't get it," and like, it's like it's untouching and like
What
blah blah
part is
blah.
it ridiculous that the rabbit has a backpack and walks around and can see a
Yeah,
moon,
like
or
everything about it is ridiculous, you know?
what
Everything
part?
about
Exactly.
I mean, everything about it doesn't make sense, but it's like that's the world that she's in, and it's like,
Exactly. It's a worlding. It's the author's worlding. I love
yeah,
what you say about like you're not going to worry about these little tiny steps. You're letting the
mm,
bullshit fall aside and you're like,
yeah,
this is what I want and it's just there because I say it's there. This is my
mm,
creation, this is my worlding, right?
very nice.
You're enacting choice, right? Enacting
Yeah,
choice and making decisions and creating a realm where
mm,
you can express your joyous part of you, the most
yeah,
joyous part of you. Like the moon sequence, the one with no words, like the it's like I could tell that this was your favorite part because I felt the
mm,
joy through it. I was like,
mm,
I could see her like having a lot of fun with this moment,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Like, yeah, like this is like it's such a great, these two
yeah.
pages are
It's
so lovely.
thank you.
Also, I noticed like this is very your style, like this kind of nose.
Oh yeah, just teardrop nose.
Teardrop
Yeah.
nose. Like that's very yogurt. Yeah. I love
Mm.
this book. I think it's so great. Let me ask you about the names. Why Willow?
No, no big reason. It just stuck, I think, at that moment when I was, making that story. I was just like, Willow is a nice name. I will use the word Willow, the name Willow. Yeah, it was just like on my mind for some
Okay.
reason.
Yeah.
It just sounded nice. And actually, like the title was only Willow. It wasn't even Shy Willow. It was just Willow.
Oh.
But then when it got into like, yeah, but then and I didn't even really describe Willow as shy in the story. There's nowhere, I don't think anywhere in the story it says she's a shy rabbit, right?
No, it doesn't say it in literal terms, no, but it's
Yeah,
very
so there's
obvious.
no, it's so I didn't even like think that that Willow is shy until the publisher was like, "Can like why don't we change the title to Shy Willow so that we can kind of describe her more in the title and like give her the reader's hint of kind of what
Yeah.
the story's about." And I was like, "Okay." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but for honestly for me it was like, okay, she is shy, but she's not really shy because she does like something brave here. Um
Oh.
I but it's like it's like a publicity thing. It's like a it's a
A
way
marketing
to
tool.
promote the marketing tool.
Mhm.
There you go. And I get it, and I am happy that we changed it to Shy Willow, but it's like you know just from my point of view, it's kind of like she just one part of her is shy. She just lives in this mailbox. Maybe that part of her is shy, but then she's actually not that shy.
Yeah.
Because the word shy can be very misleading. I think sometimes
Oh.
it can be like, okay, a shy person, and you think someone who doesn't talk or like doesn't like shies away from doing anything brave or kind
Uh-huh.
of 약간 그런 거.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, if you look at it in a very kind of like surface level, like 그냥 it's a shy rabbit that does something brave and now she's brave. And it's very like,
Oh, I
그런
see.
거,
I
but it's
see.
like she's I feel like as the person who's created Willow, like for me it's like she is already brave. Like she already has like
Yeah.
she already has that, but it's like it was just this moment, this one part of her life that she has shown bravery, but like she's always been kind of brave too before.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh.
Whatever.
You very much seem to identify with this character.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
I saw so many aspects of you in this rabbit. Well, first of all, 87 is Year of the Rabbit. And you know, parts of me that indicated like, oh yeah, like I guess this is her introverted aspect is
Mm,
you talk about the heart thumping, you know?
yeah.
A couple times in the book, like
Mm,
when she's about to do something, like her heart
mm,
is thumping. And it's like, oh, that's so interesting because a rabbit thumps its foot,
mm.
but this is the heart thumping.
Right,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, this is something that like some introverted people or anxious people deal with, like their heart races.
Mm,
It's a very
mm,
common thing. And I was
yeah.
like, oh, this is actually great for it to be in a children's book to be like, this is something that happens. Like your heart thumping, your
Mm,
heart racing when you feel
yeah.
nervous about something or when you're anticipating something, right?
Mm,
And that's why when you pointed to that imagery of the rabbit with the balloon going up, like is she shy? I mean, is she scared or is she
mm,
excited? Right? It's like
mm.
sometimes it's both,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like when you're about to do something that you're really afraid of,
Mm.
it's usually the thing you should be doing. And when you go ahead and you take
Mm,
that big step into doing it, your heart will be racing because, yeah, you're terrified, but you're also fucking excited.
yeah.
Yeah,
And you
right?
talked about adrenaline last time when we talked. It's
Yeah.
like you when you think of it as like anxiety and fear,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes
It's
that. But when you
crippling.
change that word to
Yeah.
adrenaline, it
Yes.
becomes exciting. It
Yeah,
becomes like this good thing. And like
exactly.
I'm so glad that you had worded it as adrenaline, and like that word has been like in my mind constantly
Oh,
since that
really?
day. Yeah, because like whenever like I'm like about to do something that I'm like kind of like I already feel my heart kind of like racing from thinking
Yeah.
about doing it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, now this is adrenaline. This is a good thing. Like this is I'm excited for it. And when I
Yeah.
kind of like change the way I think about that,
Yeah.
it becomes a good thing. And like
I
I
love
am
that.
actually excited for it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It becomes a good thing. Yeah.
It's like so funny how like we end up morphing into the thing that we want to become as soon as we change our perspective about it, you know?
Mm,
Like
mm,
I probably already told you this example, but like when my students were like, "Oh, I have this paper idea, but I don't know how," and I have all these excuses. I'm listening to them for like 30 minutes or whatever, and I'm like, "Did you start writing?" And they're like, "No." I was like, "Well, that's
mm.
why you feel like shit." Just write
Uh,
one sentence. Let's write one
mm,
sentence together.
mm, mm,
Okay,
mm,
how do you feel? They feel so much better. All right. I was like, as
mm,
long as you think about doing it, you're only going to feel fear. But once you start doing it, you're going to see that that fear is not fear. You're doing it, you're excited, you're really fucking psyched for this paper now. And that's how
mm,
everything goes, right? With
mm.
everything, like same
Yeah.
thing how I felt when I was doing this podcast. I'm going to be celebrating my 100th episode next month.
Oh,
And yeah,
awesome. Mm.
when I first started it, I was like on my floor in a fetal position at times because I was
Mm.
so afraid. And
Oh,
once I started doing it, I was like, what the fuck was I afraid of?
uh,
This is not a big deal at all.
mm.
It's not a big deal,
And
you
yeah,
know?
it's like you're talking about things that you're interested in. You're talking about things that you love, and it's like you're talking with people that you know that you like, and it's like you're enjoy. It's like, but I know it's before you do it, it's like you're so scared.
It
Yeah,
feels like this impossible mountain.
맞아, 맞아,
God damn. But
맞아.
yeah, I love how you put that, it's just like, oh, let me just switch this to adrenaline, you know? Because like, yeah, for me
But
that
you're
was
the
with
one who told me that.
stand
You're
up.
the one who
Yeah,
told me that.
I did,
You're
I
the
did. No, it was like in the context of stand up, but
mm,
you're expanding it to more of a universality, and I love that.
oh,
You could apply that to anything.
yeah.
Like yeah, I whenever I do stand up, I feel that way, and like now it's just habit. I'm like, this is
Mm,
just how I feel when I'm about to go up on stage. I'm
mm,
anticipating the crowd. It's just how I
mm,
feel. But
mm.
yeah, I could probably apply that to beyond just the stage now. But yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. And I want to talk to you about your new book that's
Okay.
coming out. So this episode is going to drop on October 31st, and your book is going to be out November 1st, right?
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
it's perfect, yeah? Okay.
Perfect timing.
So your new book, let's see, you have it with you? Can you hold it up?
Mm. Da-da-da-da. Like,
I love it. It's so great. There I This is such a cute book. I was like, "This is adorable." I was like, "This is so cute." It's, like, warming my heart. Even, like, just not to get too analytical, but, like, this has mostly, like, blue and, like, green tones, and then this book is warmer. You got, like, peaches and, like, orange and yellow
yeah,
and red, and just in terms of, like, uh, I don't know, I'm into chakras now, but, like, color of chakras, like these colors, like indigo, blue, purple, they're
yeah.
like up here. Crown,
Mm,
third eye, voice. So it's very
mm,
analytical. But then with warmer colors like orange, yellow, red, that's below. So
oh,
like here in the belly area is yellow, and then in the like crotch area, sacral, that's
mhm.
orange, and then
Oh,
at the spine is red. And those are more how would I say? Like in touch with the body,
okay.
sensuality, creativity, and money. So ambition. Yeah. So there's a lot of creativity in those areas. And you're definitely I could tell that you're diving deeper and feeling
Mm,
a little bit more bold and a little bit more you with this
mm.
book. That's just a feeling I got. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I think with the second book, it definitely feels different from the first book because the first book, everything is new. Everything is like a new experience and like
Yes.
yeah, so it's like everything is for the first time and like a lot of now I'm gonna just say adrenaline. I used to label it as fear, but now I'm just gonna say adrenaline. It's there's a lot of excitement of doing something that I've been dreaming about doing and then like having it happen, like doing it in the middle of it. But with the second book, it's the same but also sort of with more I don't know if it's confidence. I don't know if the right word is confidence, but it's more it's kind of like 약간 좀 더 with more purpose. I don't know how to say it. Like
That's
좀
good.
더
Purpose is good.
purpose, yeah, and like more like the path looks clearer, I think, if that makes sense. With
More
Shy Willow, it was
intention.
kind of like, yeah, like to describe it in a visual way, like Shy Willow, it was like the road was kind of like a lot of grass and like leaves on the floor. You're not really sure where the path
Mm.
is. But with this book, it was just like a path and like just
Clear
go,
path. Mhm.
kind of. I think that's what it felt like with the second book.
Yeah.
But still, like, still the path is clear, but the still like what's at the end of the path is always kind of like darkness. So it's like or light. I don't know. There's always like
Uncertainty.
uncertainty. Yes, not really knowing what's gonna be at the end of it, but like it's like now it's like I know this is where I want to go.
The
Um,
path is
but
carved out already. Yeah.
exactly, but like I don't really know what's at the end of it.
Uh-huh.
It's like, but you know
Uncertainty.
you want to be on that road.
Yeah, man. Fuck
Yeah,
yeah. Ooh, it's
yeah.
deep. I love it.
Um,
I love the opening, first of all. I was like, "Oh shit, like Catherine got diverse, like the opening pages, like you got the diversity of, people, different skin tones, like, like you have
Mhm.
somebody wearing a hijab, you have like you have people of color in the opening
Yeah,
page,
yeah,
and I was like,
yeah,
this is new too. Like,
yeah,
because I
yeah.
remember when you and I worked on that Mictu and Belgi thing with the whale and the little girl.
맞아,
You remember
맞아,
she was a
맞아.
white girl?
She was, yeah.
And do you remember when we made Billow?
Billow. And she was also a white
She
girl.
was a
Yeah,
white girl.
yeah,
Remember?
yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh, how interesting."
Mm,
That she made these choices. Blonde hair, blue eyes. And then
mhm.
in this book, you have a boy that looks Asian. He's
Yeah.
wearing a hanbok when he
Oh,
opens
oh.
the door. I could see the
Yeah,
hanbok inside. He's wearing that
yeah,
little chogori thing.
yeah.
I was like, "Oh." I was like, "She's inserting
You
Yu
know,
Young in there." Yeah.
it, I think so I've always when I've made like characters before, I think like the white girl with blonde hair. It's I think so when I analyze that, like why do I keep making these characters this way? When I was first starting off, like going into this. Um, and like I had this conversation with another artist, and it was like, it's because I grew up reading books with only this sort of representation. And like this was like in my mind, it's like this is the obvious main character.
Yes.
Um, but it's like, and like, you know, it felt so when I realized that, when that realization came, I was like, it was kind of sad. Like it was kind of like, why? Like I'm not white. I'm not
Mm,
white girl with blonde hair. Why am I doing? Like, why do I always draw my main characters this way? It's not even me. You know, it's not even part of me. Um, so when I began to like when I realized that, you know, I tried to really put myself in my work, you know, more. And I think also my agent and like the my editor was kind of like encouraging that too. Like it's like, where do you see yourself? You know, kind of like why don't you try to put more of yourself in your work? And like I think that's why doing this was such a big thing for me too, because you have to really look at yourself. If you want to make a character that's based on yourself, you have to look at yourself, you know, and like kind of study yourself. um and by doing that, like a lot of like my own kind of, it was like therapy for me a little bit, you know.
yeah.
um that's something else. uh what is it? So yeah, I you know, decided to make the main character this Korean like Asian boy, wearing traditional Asian clothes. um and I'm happy I did that because
Yeah.
it's something that I'm actually familiar with it, you know. But it's like I haven't seen this type of thing in a children's book before. So it's
Right.
like, you know what I mean? It's like I know though, like lately in the past few years, more and more diverse books are coming out, you know. In in both picture books and also in like, you know, novels and, you know, fiction, nonfiction. Um, there's more representation, more diversity, and you know, it's great. It's great that we
Mhm.
are in this time and place, you know, that we're in
Yeah.
this moment where diversity is being encouraged and is being more and more accepted and look, you know, searched out for. Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was when I saw these little details, because it's not like too in your face. It's very like
Um,
you. It's like, I'm gonna put it in there, you know,
yeah,
and it's gonna
yeah,
be there, but
yeah.
I'm not gonna be too intense about it, you know? Like, I'm not gonna be obvious about it, but it's
uh,
there. Like,
um,
he's wearing a
yeah.
hanbok, you see? It's like it's under the cloak, you know? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
even with the candy can, you have like satang can, written,
맞아,
like
맞아,
you
맞아,
have
맞아.
Korean on it. And then on the last page of the book, you have the hanok roof. I noticed that too.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, she's like putting it in there. And those little details mean so much to
Mm,
somebody who recognizes them, you know?
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
was like, I was excited. I was moved, you know? Because
Mhm,
even like this title, Willow,
mm.
there's a children's book, like Wind in the Willow. Like it's like a
Um,
children's it's in
there's a
a
lot of
poem.
books with yeah. Oh,
Willow is so prominent, you know?
it is. It is.
And it's like you're sort of reappropriating it or just recycling it and taking it and making it your own. Of
Mhm,
course, it's a rabbit, right?
mhm,
It's a rabbit, so like diverse, who cares? But it's still you in a way. It's like, okay, well,
mhm,
I'm Tokiti, it's like kind of
mhm,
in there,
mhm,
Um, and then you have this old lady in your new book in the toy maker, and I'm looking at her, I'm
mhm.
like, that looks like Yugyung.
The funny thing about the old lady too, initially I drew her as like this plump, like old
Ah,
lady, like
a
very
fat
plump.
lady.
just like plump, like very kind of like a stereotypical old lady where it's like, plump and like very, like 푸근해 보여,
Like Mrs. Claus kind of type.
Exactly, exactly. And then like the art director was like she sent me like all these like kind of like reference images of like other old people, and she was like, old ladies don't have to look like this. And like imagine if you were an old lady, she was telling me.
Yeah.
"Well, what do you want to look like when you're an old lady? Do you
Yeah.
want to look like this?" And I was like, "Okay, okay." So that's why I kind of like really, really like redesigned the old lady, thinking using those reference images and then thinking, how do I want to like what would I look like if I was an old lady? Um, yeah. So it was like it was a
She
very
looks
big
just like you.
funny funny thing is though the so it's the funny thing is though I like for me like I thought 속으로는 I knew it was more based on me than rather than these reference images like so the art director sent me images of Joan Didion. She had passed away recently,
Yes.
but she had sent it to me before she passed away.
Yes.
So it was like this is also how an old lady could look like in life.
Yes. She was super thin.
Yeah, yeah, very thin. And like I actually read like because of that I read her Year of Magical Thinking book, and it was
Oh, I
so
love that book.
yeah, it made me think so much about like and like you remember how I am still sort of like really into like time and stuff, and like
Mhm.
she mentions about a vortex constantly
Mm.
in that book, and like I kind of understood what she meant when she would see something or be somewhere and like she would go into this vortex. That's like, that's basically you're like flashing back. Um, and I think it was like, I think you see that vortex when you're really, when you've lost something or like, you're kind of like really missing something, from the past.
Mm.
Um, and we'll talk about this later. This is like kind of like not related to what we're
But
about the
no,
book.
but it is related to your book, right?
It is. It
Because
is.
she this kid, this
Mhm,
toy maker wizard person, this child, this
mhm,
being is like, "Oh, I know exactly what to do with that thing."
mhm,
And she's like, "No, this is all wrong." And I
mhm.
remember
Yeah.
one of the parts before it went wrong, before that big flower popped up, the last thing that came out was a bee.
Oh, yeah. Ah.
I was like, "Yes.
Of
Yes."
course.
Was that on purpose?
It was just like
Probably.
it was a suggestion, not a bee specifically, but it was like the art director was like before the flower pops up, maybe like it could be a little hints of like other things that lead to the flower. And I was like,
And
what
then it
could
was a
lead to a
bee.
flower? Bee. you know.
And then she's like, "Ah!" Like when this flower comes out, but I'm like, "No, no, no. If that bee came out with Young, she would have been screaming her head off."
So funny.
And then there's this lovely moment, there's a pause, and then the kid is
Mhm.
like, "Let's have some tea and talk," you know?
Oh,
And it's
oh,
like, fuck yeah. That's what we
oh.
women want. We want to sit and talk and have some tea so we could tell you what it is that we want. God
Yeah.
damn it. Yes. For fuck's sake, yes. I love the spread too. You have jasmine tea and you have moon
Mhm.
cakes. You don't
Oh.
put out fucking English breakfast and biscuits or whatever the fuck. No cookies, none of that bullshit. This is moon cakes, jasmine tea. Let's make it fucking Asian. Let's do it up. All right. I would have pushed it to like fucking 생강차 and 떡, and a shot of soju if you want it, you know. But I was like, these are excellent details, right? And then, you're talking about this vortex of time and where it takes you. Okay,
Mhm,
potentially, sometimes flashbacks, especially if it's trauma related, it's fucking
mhm,
horrible. It's horrendous.
mhm,
But there are also times when something triggers a memory and it takes us
mhm,
somewhere amazing, right?
mhm,
And that's what
mhm.
happens with this old lady. She's like, oh,
Yeah.
this bag. I was like, "Oh, that's crazy too." Remember when you and I had lunch and
Mhm,
before we were leaving, I pointed at your bag because it
mhm.
was really beautiful. You had this like leather bag and there was this beautiful clasp, like a metal
Oh, yeah,
clasp
yeah,
on it.
yeah,
I was like, "This is
yeah.
a gorgeous bag," you know? And it's like, "Oh, this this child being is being present and
Mhm,
noticing a detail about this person in front of him, and he's going to ask questions about it or say a compliment, and
mhm,
then that becomes this comfortable conversation, right?
mhm, mhm.
That
Yeah,
leads to this story.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I really wanted that kind of like that conversation, like the moment where they sit down for tea and to talk. I wanted that was like the important part of the story where it's like they sit down and get to know each other. Well, the little toy maker gets to know the old lady more, so that he can kind of know, like, decide, like, to know what the toy that she wanted, um, and yeah, now that you mention it, it's like that candy tin, it's like a vortex for her. It has become
Yes.
a toy of vortex, to a collection of her happy memories, all in
Yes.
that candy tin. And like, uh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, it it's funny because now that you mention it is a vortex now. I just imagined it as like, she just looks inside and she sees all of her memories, but it is like by doing that she is transporting herself to those memories, and when she's looking at it.
Yeah.
um yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's like and even the way she looks at it's like a kaleidoscope, right?
Yeah.
Or like a microscope, but it's like, no, you're looking into your memory bank
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this is your favorite object,
Mm-hmm.
that you had
Mm-hmm.
when you were a child, but you're looking in and you're seeing this all the loving moments that you've had, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
There was like
yeah,
so much love in that one frame, like when she's looking
yeah.
in and it's like all these
Yeah,
happy memories.
yeah,
I also loved the illustration of like the sea creatures, like the whale and like the scarf. I was like,
yeah, yeah,
fuck yeah. Like I could see like, because you and I are also making a film together, like the
yeah.
conversations that we've had sort of like, you know, I was like the inspirations there kind of. Like I could
Mhm,
see like
yeah,
little
yeah,
details. I
yeah.
loved that. And I think my favorite, because you have so many little drawings like all over, like that's my
Mhm,
favorite thing about all of your work is,
mhm.
you know, you're like a maximalist in a way. You're like
Oh.
a quiet maximalist, you know?
Quite a maximum.
Yo, you're a quiet maximalist because it's like not that obvious. You're very insidious about how maximalist you are, but you have so many like you cram it in with it's like
Mhm.
this is a toy where all the toys, man, I'm gonna put it all in, but they're all like all kind of on the edge. Oh, like this is like so like her. But my favorite part was the very, very last page, like with the credits and all that.
Mhm.
Um, you have a little turtle talking into the cup phone.
Yeah,
And there's nobody on the other end, but there's
and
like
it's just like speech bubbles coming
words
out.
coming out. It's my favorite part. That was my favorite
Mhm,
imagery. I'm like, this is so
mhm,
cute. What
mhm,
else did I have to say about it? Oh, and the other part that I thought was like amazing is you know, when the old lady like when the kid is doing all these things and then the old
mhm,
lady says, "I guess I don't know exactly what I wanted." Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that line?
Yeah, it's like I think that's what a lot of us feel. It's like we know, it's like, so we go to it's like we want something, but it's like we don't really know what it is that we want, and you're kind of like searching for that answer, by going, like, this old lady goes to this little toy maker for help, basically,
Yeah.
to find that what she wants.
Yes.
They're working on it together. It's not just him on his own making it for her. She has to talk to him for him to find out what it is that she really wants. And like he sees it, like, when as he talks to her and she tells her about her happy memories, and like kind of like those memories kind of like swirl on the, you know,
Yeah.
around, and like maybe she doesn't see it, maybe she does, I don't know. um I think he like brings that all into that candy tin.
Yeah.
I think that's how we all are. I think, sometimes we want something, but it's like sometimes we need the help of others to find out what that really is. um
Through dialogue, yeah.
Through dialogue, yeah, through conversation.
And mooncakes and jasmine tea.
Yes, yes. Yes. And it's like, it's not like this is what I want. Like, it's not, she never says this is what I want. Like this. She doesn't specify what it is. She
Yeah.
talks about her past. She talks about her
Yeah.
happy memories. She talks
Uh-huh.
about how she got her bag, how she got the scarf, and like
Yeah.
through that conversation, this is what the little toy maker sees and
Yeah.
makes it for her at the end.
Yeah.
So I think that was the point. I think, if there
Yes.
is a point of the story, the point was, you know the, having dialogue, having conversation, having communication, whether it's even without words, just this,
Exactly.
interaction or whatever. That's how you reach the answer. That's how you reach where you want to go. It's like you come to a realization at the end of that conversation or
Mhm.
whatever. um
Like just
I
being
think,
being attentive
yeah.
in the moment, you know?
Yes,
Like
yes.
again, like he's like, "Oh, that's a lovely bag." You know? "I like
Mm-mm,
that bag." And it's like,
mm,
"Oh yeah."
mm,
It's it's not even about like I love how you put it that way. It's like she never says what it is that she wants. She
mhm,
just talks, and then this boy can feel out where she's vibing high. Oh, she's
mm,
having a pleasant experience right now when she's talking about this. She is
mm,
she is expressing love when she's talking about this, and it's as if the boy can see those vibrations and the shapes and sounds of those things, and he can turn it into something, you know?
yeah.
Like, I'm, like, all about, like, that shit right now, like, vibrations and waves and blah, 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 like, chakras,
Mm,
aura. I'm into that stuff right now, but I have a good friend named Sam.
mm,
He used to be a physicist, so he was getting his
oh,
PhD in physics, and we were shooting pool, and, since he's science and I'm more, like, into, like, the hippie woohoo shit, I
mm,
asked him, I was like, "What is your theory on vibrations and waves?" And he
mm,
was like, in physics, one of the quintessential books we have to read is called Vibration and Waves. And he was like, everything is vibration,
mhm,
everything is waves. When
mhm,
we go into a room, we can sense something. Can't put it into words, we only know it by feeling.
mhm,
This kid and this old lady, they're having a conversation. There's feeling erupting in the room, and that's what
mhm,
this kid is seeing, and that's what you drew in visually.
mm,
The most warm, lovely things. There's a one other detail I loved. When he's like working, and then you have the sound effects like tinkle, ting, swoosh.
mm. Yeah.
In the end, you have like shh, that part. I was like, that's so her. Like that's something. That's so I was like, that is so her, because like when we're talking, like a lot of you add in sound effects, like your own
Um,
personal sound effects, and I was
oh,
like, and that's why I was like, with this second book, you were like, maybe confidence is not quite the word. I was like, okay,
mhm,
maybe it's not confidence, but it is more boldly you. You
mm,
know?
yeah.
It's like you
Mm,
allowed yourself to be a little bit more you, and you had a lot of help with that. Like,
yeah.
it sounds like you have an amazing team. Like your
No.
art director's
Yeah.
suggestions,
Yeah.
bravo.
Yeah.
The way that they directed you is bravo,
Mm,
because they were like,
mm,
what would you look like if you're an old lady?
mm,
Rather
yeah.
than us falling back on the stereotypical default of what we've seen in media all of our lives.
Mm,
She's like, make something that is
mm,
and what your agent and your publisher says, like, what do you want to see? Those
mhm,
are such amazing suggestions, and it's funny, but we need it. Like,
mhm,
I understand the feeling. Like, it's like when we're creating something, it's like we're kind of drifting through darkness, and it's like,
mhm,
but what if this is wrong? What if this offends? What if this
yeah.
is stupid? What if
Yeah.
this fails? What if this is bullshit? What if? But it's like, we know what it is that we want. We
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
We want to put me in there. I want to
Yeah.
put me in there as much as possible, but
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for putting me in there. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm fucking sorry. How dare I? How dare I put me in there? How dare Right?
Uh, yeah.
That's the torment that we go through when we're creating. But we
Mhm.
have a team that's like, we want to see as much of you as possible, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's like you're not being extreme about it, not yet, but it's boldly present in the book. I
Mhm.
see it,
Mm.
the
Mhm.
you know, the old lady looking like you. It's
Yeah.
so I love your second book. Yeah,
Thank
really
you. Thank you.
congratulations on it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's funny that you mentioned about that because remember you told me when you were working also on your draft and you were saying, I think the agent or the editor was telling you put more of you in, like a
Yes.
suggestion was put you in it. And then like that
Yes.
reminded me so much of what my art director told me. So that's why I was like, yes, that's the answer. You put
Yes.
yourself in there. I was like, yes.
Yes.
Because that was
Yeah.
exactly what the suggestion that I got too. So it's like, and it feels good, it feels good when you do that, it
Feels
feels good.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
like, you were talking about how like, oh, why did I have a blonde hair, blue-eyed character,
Mhm,
in my earlier pieces? And it's like, oh,
mhm,
because of the media that I've seen. And then you were like, well, I got sad when that realization occurred to me. And it's like that
mhm,
sadness, that mourning period is a
mhm,
very significant process. But this moment, when you're making your own book and you were like, oh, it's
mhm,
therapeutic, of course, it's
mhm,
healing. You're
mhm,
healing that wound that you were mourning by making your own shit, by being like, this is what I wanted to see and it wasn't there before.
yeah,
And it's hitting on so many levels. One, it's hitting on your own personal, spiritual, psychic level, like this is healing. On another level, it's like, well, this is contributing to the diversity that we need to embrace. And
right,
on a third level, it's hitting like, well, this never existed before.
right,
This is
right.
new, it's
Mm,
pioneering, and that's what we need. That's what art is. Everything should
mhm,
be new,
yeah,
creative, and
yeah,
original.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm having this conversation with you because I feel like with the second book, um, well, with anything actually, it's like when you are done working on a project, I don't think you're ever really consciously making decisions like with every step you take while working on the project, and then like you kind of like analyze it and take it apart after you're done with it. So all these realizations and your kind of like what your thoughts are on the book, it's giving me so much insight on what I was thinking while working on the book. So yeah, this is good. Like it's a good this is a good conversation. Like it's giving me more boldness, not confidence, boldness. Like you said, boldness to be me, boldness to be ourselves for our next project. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Fuck yeah, for your third book, which I'm
yeah,
stoked for.
yeah,
Because I read the small detail on just on what you posted on
yeah,
your Instagram, and I was like,
yeah.
this is groovy, man. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is what I'm talking about. I love it. I'm into it. Yes, yes. You're really
Yeah.
great with worlding, creating your
Mm,
own world with specific kinds of not rules, but just
mm,
how things are in that specific rule like world. You're very good
yeah,
with that. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, thank you.
I think your second book is I think your second book's going to be a massive success. Truly. I'm really excited for it. And um you know, to wrap up, just one other question. Why did you
Sure.
name the little boy Theo in this book, in the first book?
Another just very 단순한 이유, like very simple, like 그냥 Theo was a nice name. There
A
was
nice
no
name?
real. I do, but I was aware that it was the name of Van Gogh's brother's name. So
Oh.
yeah, Van Gogh's brother's name is Theo, and like I remember, I think I had told you before, but like Van Gogh had written to Theo in a letter saying like, um, I am carefully taking care of myself by shutting myself away, you
Oh,
know. So he had
yeah.
Van Gogh had written that letter to Theo. So I feel like just in my mind, I wasn't consciously making that decision, but I think in my mind it was like in Theo was in my mind because it was like letter. Okay, Theo. And then like it was not shutting, yes. Like, so it was like it all kind of like connected. So yeah, I think yeah.
No, so the day I was reading your book,
Oh,
I was in a high space, let's put it that way.
oh.
Theo means God
I knew that afterwards. I found yeah, yeah.
in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
It means God. That's why they say theology, right? Study of God.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I mentioned how this has like crown chakra colors, like blue,
Mm-hmm.
like purple is crown, blue is third eye, or indigo is
Mm-hmm.
third eye, blue is
Oh,
throat. But those colors are all associated with the divine, you know? Crown chakra is accessing the divine, third eye is accessing the divine, throat is communicating the
mm.
divine. So I was like, oh, that's fucking fascinating, you know?
That's crazy.
Crazy,
Yeah.
but not that crazy. Yeah, no, you're very spiritually, in tune, I think.
Mm,
That's what I
mm,
get time and
mm.
time again with you. And yeah, no, really, really beautiful second book, beautiful first
Thank
book,
you.
and I'm
Thank
I'm really
you.
looking forward to your third book. So
Thank
congratulations.
you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to your book too. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So thank you.